What if I told you this passive speaker isolator can possibly make a larger difference than audio components like a new DAC or a new amp? For this test, I replaced my standard setup of conventional stainless steel spikes and floor discs with the AUVA 50 isolators from Stack Audio. I was surprised by how much of a difference they made. Not only did they widen the soundstage and reveal details I never noticed before, but they actually produced a measurable difference in how my room handles bass energy. Today, we're finding out what these little footers can potentially do to improve your system. Welcome back to the channel, I'm Colin. Today we're looking at the AUVA 50 from Stack Audio. These are high-end speaker isolators designed to go under floor standing speakers or right under speaker stands. The AUVA 50 comes in a set of 3, 4, or 8. They include spikes for carpet, but since I'm on hard floor, the pre-installed felt pads are perfect. The AUVA 50s are available in various thread sizes to fit almost any stand or tower. For my setup, I ordered the M6 threads. Unlike the AUVA SW isolators I've reviewed previously, the AUVA 50 has absolutely no give or play. It feels like a solid rigid block of machined aluminum. It is also quite a bit heavier and denser than the AUVA SW, which were designed for subwoofers. When you shake these, you can hear that the inside chamber is filled with sand-like metallic particles. It's called particle impact damping, and it's designed to sink vibration without the bounce or smear associated with rubber or spring isolators. Traditional steel spikes are designed to couple your speaker to the floor through high-pressure contact points. The goal is to anchor the speaker so firmly that it and the floor act as one single immobile mass. By grounding the speaker this way, you provide a stable platform for the drivers to work against. However, this theory has a drawback. The floor will have its own resonance. When you couple a speaker to a floor using those stainless steel spikes, you often just turn the floor into a giant vibrating surface that plays along with the music. Furthermore, that energy has nowhere to go. It often reflects back up the spike and into the speaker cabinet, causing smearing and bloated bass. The AUVA 50 takes the opposite approach, particle damping. Instead of passing that vibration into your floor or letting it bounce back into the cabinet, the AUVA acts as a mechanical sink. It absorbs that kinetic energy and converts it into heat within that internal chamber, reducing energy transmitted to the floor and back into the cabinet. By reducing the ringing from the floor and the cabinet, you effectively lower the noise floor during playback, allowing you to hear more of the music and less of the room. I'm testing these with my Dali Menuet bookshelves on Solidsteel NS6 stands. In this setup, I chose to couple the speaker directly to the stand rather than decoupling or floating them. I did this to take full advantage of the AUVA 50's properties. By creating a rigid bridge from the speaker to the stand, I am channeling as much vibration as possible down into the isolators so they can do their job. To make sure the speaker is locked tightly to the stand, I used 5 small blobs of Blu-Tack sitting right on top of the screw heads. I used Blu-Tack here for 2 main reasons. First, it forces the light speaker and the heavy stand to act as one single mass, which provides more stability for the drivers. Second, it creates an effective path to channel vibrations away from the cabinet and through the 5 metal tubes, using the stand as a pathway to send that energy down to the AUVA 50 where it can be dissipated. Installation was simple. I screwed them all the way in, and my floor is flat so I don't need leveling. But you can easily level them using the 2 integrated adjustment rings if your floor is uneven. One major advantage here is that because these are a single piece, they make positioning the speakers much easier. You don't have to worry about a sharp spike slipping off a disc and scratching your floor. To see how the AUVA 50 interacts with my room, I measured them using a UMIC 1 at the listening position. By the way, my room has concrete floors and brick walls. First, Let's look at the frequency response. As you can see, the graphs are essentially the same up to around 500 Hz. The AUVA 50 is designed to minimize unwanted resonances between the speaker and the room, so it's expected that we see no change in the overall frequency response. You might notice minor deviations in the higher frequencies, but I'm disregarding the high frequency data here to stay focused on what actually matters, the bass and the room's energy decay, because even a millimeter of height change significantly alters the treble measurements in relation to the microphone. A direct comparison of the treble is essentially meaningless. That is why I'm focusing my analysis on the waterfall graph and the frequencies below 500 Hz. This is where we can accurately measure spectral decay, how long it takes for a sound to actually stop ringing in your room. Usually the less energy being transmitted into the floor, the shorter the ringing, which allows us to measure exactly how effective the AUVA 50 are compared to my original stainless spikes. If you look at the 30 Hz to 100 Hz range, the difference is clear. With the steel spikes and AUVA 50, those ridges are significantly lower in level. Furthermore, the peak at around 180 Hz is completely gone, and we see a much deeper blue noise floor across the 200 to 500 Hz range when comparing the two graphs. The effect of AUVA 50 was basically a full range improvement from 30 Hz to 500 Hz. By cleaning up that low resonance and stopping the floor from ringing, the AUVA 50 is effectively lowering the noise floor of the room itself when music is playing. That measurement pretty much translates directly into what I heard. I started with Risk It All by Bruno Mars. The second I sat down with the AUVAs installed, I immediately heard better layering. This track has a beautiful reverb effect that felt much more distant and had more of that echoey effect compared to when the spikes were in place. Then, On the Day I Die by Chris Stapleton. Chris's wife sings backing vocals. With the steel spikes, they were there, but sounded very vague. With the AUVA 50s, it felt that backing vocals were much more apparent in the mix. Last, on Standing on the Moon by Grateful Dead, there's a drumming panning effect at the beginning that moves from right to middle. I've listened to this track many times, but I've never heard that specific movement so clearly defined. Across all tracks, the soundstage feels taller and the vocals are more convincingly placed in front of the speakers. There's simply more layering to the depth of the image. The mid-range is noticeably cleaner, and acoustic guitar plucks have gained a sense of body and weight that just wasn't there before. Another reviewer that tried this suggested that you should consider buying the AUVA 50s before upgrading another component like a DAC or amp. After this test, I actually agree. In my system, swapping my stainless steel spikes and discs for the AUVA 50s made a larger audible and measurable difference than many equipment changes I've made in the past. I am actually impressed that a passive component that's not actually in the signal chain can make that much of a difference. Even if you have stand mount speakers like my Dali Menuets, don't assume these won't work for you. They worked well to absorb resonances even with a stand between the speakers and the AUVA 50. If you have tower speakers, I think these will even have a larger effect in controlling and dampening cabinet resonances. If you have a decent system but you're still using basic spikes and cones, stop chasing a new DAC for a moment. Try these. Stack Audio offers a 60-day trial, and they even pay for the return shipping if you don't like them. Based on what I've heard and measured today, I don't think many people will be sending them back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.